I tend to have a lot of people ask me if they can register their company as a dormant company. Usually it's because they actually haven't filed their accounts, they're late, and so that deadline is showing on Companies House, or they just don't know how to do it and they're wondering if they would qualify for registration as a dormant company. In today's video, we'll talk about what it is, who can register, and how you go about doing it. Let's dive right into it. So, what is a dormant company? Now, a dormant company, or a company that qualifies to be registered as a dormant company, is one that hasn't started trading or hasn't been trading in the current year. So what that means is you haven't made any profits, you haven't made any losses, there haven't been any transactions at all. Now, sometimes this happens, let's say if you register your company and you are not yet ready to start doing the business. So you're still securing contracts maybe, or you just wanted to reserve the name and so you've secured this name but you haven't started doing anything with that business. I tend to see it a lot, especially with property people that are intending to buy properties but are not yet ready to buy, or in some instances maybe they're still exploring mortgage options or financing options and they're not yet ready to start trading. Another group of companies is where you've been trading before, but in the last year, no other transactions have happened. So it can be one company within a group of companies. So one company isn't really active and the trading activity is in another company. Or maybe all of the transactions have moved from one side of the business or from one company to another company. And so in the full year, nothing has happened. Then you can qualify to be a dormant company. Now, it is important for you to remember it is for the full year. So you can't say, I haven't been trading in the last 2 months and then want to qualify for dormancy. You have to have stopped trading for the full year. And how can you check this? So no transactions at all in your business. So let's say if you look at your bank statements, nothing has gone in, nothing has come out. Bank interest may disqualify you as well because those are transactions and you're earning interest or you're paying charges. So sometimes that's some form of activity. With bigger companies, this may be disregarded if it really is insignificant. However, as long as there are any transactions on your bank statement, you cannot qualify as a dormant company. And unfortunately, you will have to remain as you are and file your accounts and you can't register. So dormancy also excludes transactions relating to monies received in terms of share capital. So that is not trading, that is part of setting up the business. And any other costs, let's say amounts that you've paid to Companies House to register your company, that is not a trading activity in its form. So you can still be a dormant company even if you have those particular transactions. Anything else would qualify as trading activity, and unfortunately, you wouldn't be classed as a dormant company. So how can you tell HMRC or Companies House that you are a dormant company or you want to register as a dormant company? So you can do this by phone. You can call them and tell them that you haven't been trading, or you can do it by post. You can download the form. This is the example of the form shown up here, and you can complete that and send it to Companies House and HMRC. And they can acknowledge that you are a dormant company and you wouldn't need to file your tax returns and pay any tax amounts. Now, let me qualify that. You will be filing nil returns showing that, you don't owe any money. So all your returns will be showing zero amounts, but you don't need to pay any taxes once they've acknowledged that. You can also do this online through your web filing account. But if you go into your web filing account, you can register as a dormant company. Now, this has to be done before the period. So what I'm saying is you cannot do it retrospectively. So if you think you're not going to be trading going forward, you can go and mark your company or apply to say that you're going to be a dormant company, no transactions will be happening. You can't decide later because your accounts are due, for example, and say, oh, I was a dormant company. Usually that wouldn't be allowed. What I would also advise for you to be able to qualify fully, if you can, to maybe deactivate your bank account so that you're not getting any charges or any form of interest coming in the monies that you have. If you do have that, maybe try to have an account that has 0% interest temporarily so that you're not being charged or you're not earning any interest that may be regarded as trading activity. What are the benefits of being a dormant company? So they're not as many as people think they are. So in this case, maybe you're getting reduced compliance admin. So you don't have to be paying any taxes, and your accounts are pretty simple. So like I said, because you don't have any trading activity, the numbers that you have in your previous year will be the same numbers that you have in your current year. So there won't be any movements in your accounts, in your notes. So you can pretty much roll forward the same set of accounts as long as you're still a dormant company, and as long as that's the true position of your business. This is an example of a demo of dormant accounts, and as you can see, there are no movements. So both years have no movement in their numbers, and so that's what your accounts would look like. In some instances, it may be actually just zero amounts in all the balances, obviously except for share capital, because there has to be some form of investment for it to be called a company. Now, as a dormant company, you will not be paying any taxes, and that's one of the main benefits. You won't be getting any reminders from HMRC to say that you're potentially due for tax payments, because there hasn't been any trading activity, and HMRC will be aware of that as well. Another benefit is if you have an accountant and your company is dormant, your fees may be reduced because the amount of work that needs to be done is really minimal. There's nothing that needs to be done. They probably just need to confirm with you year on year, or for as long as you're dormant, then you are a dormant company. Now, on the downside, it doesn't mean that you won't be filing your account. So, and this is what I meant when I said the benefits are not as many as you think they are. You will still have to file your company accounts annually. So the end of every reporting year, you'd still have to file your company accounts with a deadline of 9 months after that date. So there is no escaping that. As long as your company is still active or still registered, you will still have to file the accounts. Same thing with HMRC, you'll still have to send in the zero amounts. So there won't be any amounts or any calculations for your tax returns, but it still has to be filed to say, this is still the situation. I don't owe any tax. There hasn't been any trading activity. So unfortunately, that doesn't go away. You will have to do. I have seen a lot of people just neglect that because they think I'm not trading, or I've been making losses, which is even worse because you're not a dormant company. But they don't have to neglect that. You cannot neglect that just because you are a dormant company. So in terms of how often you need to be telling HMRC, really, once you've done it, you don't need to do it again. Same with Companies House. Once you've done it, you don't need to do it again, but you still just have to be filing your accounts and your returns to show that there hasn't been any change and that is the position of your business. When you then do start trading, or you start having transactions in your company or in your bank account, you will then have to go and change that in your web filing account to say you're no longer a dormant company. At that point, you then start to resume your operations or your compliance as normal. So you will now be filing your accounts. That means also your costs may increase in terms of accounting. If someone is doing the accounting for you, if you're doing it yourself, then it's pretty much the same. But the difference is this time your accounts will have values showing the value of the transactions going through. So I hope that was helpful, and I hope that has answered someone's question. You cannot escape filing your accounts. You still have to show that you're a dormant company if you are a dormant company. If you've had transactions or you've made losses, that is not reason enough to be called a dormant company, unfortunately. You'd either have to just file and ask for your company to be struck off or to be removed from the register, or you just have to continue with business as usual. So if you have any questions or if you need any help doing that kind of work, I'd be able to assist. You can drop a comment in the comments below. Thanks for watching.